21. Black celebrities who hid their diseases until death. What if I told you that some of the most powerful voices and brightest stars in Black history were secretly dying while the world cheered for them? Behind the applause, behind the cameras, they hid devastating diseases, fighting in silence until their final breath. No headlines, no farewells, only secrets revealed after it was too late. From music icons to Hollywood heroes, these stories will change the way you see fame forever. Are you ready to uncover the truth? Hit subscribe and join us here on Legends of Black Excellence, because these legends deserve to be remembered. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross, known as the Velvet Voice of Soul, was one of the most celebrated R&B singers of all time. Born in New York City in 1951, he rose from humble beginnings to sell more than 35 million albums worldwide, earning 8 Grammy Awards, and becoming a defining figure of romantic ballads in the 1980s and 1990s. Songs like Here and Now, A House Is Not a Home and Never Too Much cemented his place as the soundtrack to countless love stories. Yet behind that warm smile and smooth tenor voice, Vandross was silently battling illnesses that few ever knew about. For years, he managed diabetes and high blood pressure conditions that steadily weakened his body while he maintained the glamorous appearance of a superstar. On stage, he radiated energy, but offstage dizzy spells and fatigue often left him struggling just to remain upright. His greatest fear was that showing weakness would shatter the image he had worked so hard to build. Every tour, every television appearance became an act of endurance, concealing the toll that illness was taking. Have you ever wondered how many of your favorite performers might have pushed through life-threatening conditions just to give fans one more unforgettable show? The turning point came on April 16, 2003, when Vandross suffered a devastating stroke at his home. It robbed him of his ability to sing and left him bedridden with only whispers reaching the public about his failing health. Despite treatment and rehabilitation, he never performed again. On July 1, 2005, at the age of 54, Luther Vandross died of a heart attack. His passing stunned the music world not only because of his unmatched talent, but also because fans never realized the immense private battle he had fought. His legacy remains one of grace power and hidden resilience. Bernie Mac. Bernie Mac was a giant in comedy. A man whose booming voice, sharp wit, and fearless humor could light up a room before he even delivered the punchline. Born Bernard Jeffrey McCulloch in Chicago in 1957, he hustled his way from stand-up clubs to Hollywood, ultimately becoming one of the original kings of comedy. His sitcom, The Bernie Mac Show, ran for 5 seasons and earned him a Primetime Emmy nomination, while his film roles in Ocean's 11, Mr. 3000, and Guess Who made him a household name. To millions, Bernie seemed unstoppable, but what the world never knew was that he was fighting a painful, invisible battle every single day. In 1983, he was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, a rare inflammatory disease that most often strikes the lungs. For Bernie, it meant constant coughing, chronic fatigue, and sleepless nights. Yet on stage, he showed no signs of weakness. His laugh was thunderous, his energy unshakable. Friends and even close colleagues had little idea of the toll the disease was taking. He believed sharing his struggle would only invite pity, and that was something he refused to accept. Do you think entertainers should reveal their struggles to inspire others or protect their privacy like Bernie did? By the summer of 2008, his health began to unravel. Within weeks, his immune system collapsed and he developed a severe bout of pneumonia. On August 1st, he was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. Doctors tried desperately to stabilize him, but his condition worsened. On August 9, 2008, Bernie Mac passed away at just 50 years old. The world lost a man who made millions laugh, yet privately bore a fight that left him breathless. His courage wasn't only in his comedy, it was in his ability to keep shining until the very end. Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman was more than just an actor. He was a symbol of hope, dignity, and cultural pride. Born in 1976 in Anderson, South Carolina, he trained as a playwright before moving into acting, where he became known for portraying groundbreaking figures like Jackie Robinson in 42 and James Brown in Get On Up. But it was his role as King T'Challa in Black Panther 2018 that catapulted him to global stardom, turning him into a cultural icon for generations. What fans never realized was that behind the regal smile and superhero strength, Chadwick was waging the most difficult fight of his life. In 2016, doctors diagnosed him with stage 3 colon cancer. The disease was aggressive, yet he refused to let it define his career. Between surgeries and chemotherapy sessions, he filmed some of his most demanding roles, including Avengers: Infinity War and Da 5 Bloods. Cast and crew often noticed his exhaustion between takes, but he never complained, never admitted the pain he carried. Would you have guessed that a man playing a fearless king on screen was privately battling a terminal illness? By 2020, the cancer had advanced to stage 4. His body grew frail, but his determination never faltered. On August 28, 2020, Chadwick Boseman died at home in Los Angeles, surrounded by family, at just 43 years old. His passing stunned the world because no one outside his inner circle knew the truth. He left behind not only a body of extraordinary work, but also a legacy of courage, discipline, and grace. To this day, Boseman remains proof that real heroes do not need masks. They show strength even in silence. Phyllis Hyman. Phyllis Hyman's voice was pure velvet, a blend of elegance and heartbreak that could pierce the soul. Born in Philadelphia in 1949, she rose to prominence in the 1970s and 1980s with unforgettable hits like You Know How to Love Me and Living All Alone. She was tall, striking, and glamorous with a stage presence that demanded attention. Yet behind the spotlight, Hyman struggled with an invisible battle that was slowly consuming her spirit. By the late 1980s, her career faced turbulence. Recording contracts slipped away, financial struggles deepened, and depression crept into her daily life. She fought bipolar disorder in silence, often masking the pain with smiles for fans and colleagues. Panic attacks, insomnia, and emotional exhaustion became constant companions. To the public, she was radiant, but inside, she was fighting to survive each day. Do you think society does enough to support artists facing mental health challenges, or are their struggles too often ignored? On June 30th, 1995, hours before she was set to perform at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, Phyllis Hyman returned to her apartment. There, she left a short note expressing her despair. "I'm tired. I'm tired. Those of you that I love know who you are. May God bless you." Soon after, she died by suicide from an overdose of sleeping pills at just 45 years old. Her passing shocked the music world and left fans with an enduring sense of loss. Today, her songs remain timeless, filled with the beauty of her artistry, but also the unspoken weight of her pain. Phyllis Hyman's story reminds us that even the brightest stars can be dimmed by struggles the world refuses to see. Etta James. Etta James was a force of nature. Her voice, raw and soulful, could move effortlessly between blues, gospel, jazz, and rock. Born Jamesetta Hawkins in Los Angeles in 1938, she rose to fame with hits like At Last Tell Mama and I'd Rather Go Blind. She became one of the most influential singers of the 20th century, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and winning 6 Grammy Awards. Yet behind the thunder of her voice, Etta fought private battles that lasted her entire life. She struggled for decades with heroin addiction, weight issues, and turbulent relationships. But by 2008, a new enemy appeared: acute leukemia. She began chemotherapy and faced numerous hospitalizations, quietly enduring grueling treatments while fans still hoped to see her return to the stage. Even in illness, she tried to maintain her dignity, appearing at events and interviews with her trademark wit and warmth. How do you think artists like Etta manage to still inspire others when their bodies are failing them? By 2010, her health worsened further. She developed dementia and was hospitalized for infections and blood clots. Despite these struggles, her music continued to play on radios worldwide, comforting fans who had no idea how dire her condition was. On January 20th, 2012, Etta James died in Riverside, California, just 5 days before what would have been her 74th birthday. The world lost a once-in-a-lifetime voice, but her legacy endures in every love song, every aching ballad, and every artist she influenced. Heavy D. Dwight Arrington. Myers, known to the world as Heavy D, brought joy and charisma to hip-hop. Born in Jamaica in 1967 and raised in Mount Vernon, New York, he rose to fame in the late 1980s with his group Heavy D and the Boys. With hits like Now That We Found Love and Somebody for Me, Heavy D helped bring rap into the mainstream, blending smooth lyrics with danceable beats. He wasn't just a rapper, he was also an actor, appearing in films like Life and Tower Heist, and was beloved for his positivity and charm. Despite his upbeat image, Heavy D's final day was sudden and tragic. On November 8, 2011, after returning from a shopping trip near his Beverly Hills home, he collapsed on the sidewalk, clutching his chest in pain. Witnesses rushed to help and paramedics transported him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but within hours, the man who had once filled stadiums with joy was gone. The autopsy revealed a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in his lungs, as the cause of death. Did you ever realize how quickly life can change even for someone as full of energy as Heavy D? He was only 44 years old. In life, Heavy D had been celebrated as the overweight lover breaking barriers in hip-hop by showing that big men could dance rap and dominate the stage with confidence. His passing shocked fans and the music industry alike, reminding the world how fragile even the brightest spirits can be. Today, his legacy lives on in the feel-good anthems that defined a generation of hip-hop. Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes was more than a musician. He was an architect of soul. Born in 1942 in Covington, Tennessee, he rose from poverty to become a cultural icon. As a songwriter at Stax Records, he penned classics like Soul Man and Hold On I'm Comin' for Sam and Dave. But it was his own groundbreaking 1969 album Hot Buttered Soul that redefined R&B, mixing lush orchestration with his deep baritone voice. In 1971, he won an Academy Award for theme from Shaft, making him one of the first black artists to earn such a distinction. To audiences, Hayes radiated strength, power, and confidence. Yet privately, his body was slowly betraying him. For years, Hayes suffered from chronic hypertension and heart disease. He chose not to speak about it, continuing to tour record and even lend his voice to the hit show South Park as chef. Friends noticed signs shortness of breath fatigue, but Hayes kept them hidden behind his imposing presence. Do you think fans prefer their idols to show vulnerability? Or is the image of strength what makes them unforgettable? On August 10, 2008, the illusion of invincibility shattered. Hayes was found unconscious beside his still-running treadmill in his Tennessee home. Paramedics rushed to save him, but at 65 years old, he was gone. The autopsy confirmed what he had never revealed. Years of heart disease had finally claimed his life. For a man whose voice once shook the foundations of music, his end came in silence. Today, Hayes remains immortal through his music, a reminder that even legends can be brought low by battles we never see. Florence Griffith Joyner. Florence Griffith Joyner, better known as FloJo, was a vision of speed and style. Born in Los Angeles in 1959, she captured the world's imagination at the 1988 Seoul Olympics, winning 3 gold medals and 1 silver. With her record-breaking 10.49 seconds in the 100 meters a time that still stands today, she became the fastest woman alive. Beyond her speed, her bold fashion, from vibrant one-legged tracksuits to jeweled nails, made her a global icon. To the world, she looked unstoppable, but her body carried a hidden danger that even her athleticism couldn't outrun. FloJo suffered from seizures and fainting spells linked to a brain vascular malformation, a rare condition that can cause sudden strokes. She chose not to reveal her health struggles, perhaps believing her strength and determination would carry her through as it had on the track. Do you believe athletes like Flojo feel pressured to hide their vulnerabilities to protect their legacy? On September 21, 1998, her husband awoke to find her unresponsive in their California home. Despite frantic attempts at resuscitation, she could not be revived. At only 38 years old, Florence Griffith Joyner's brilliant life came to a shocking end. The official cause of death was a seizure brought on by the undiagnosed condition. Her passing stunned the sports world not only because she was so young, but because she had seemed indestructible. Today, Flojo is remembered as more than a champion. She remains an enduring symbol of beauty, power, and determination, gone too soon but never forgotten. Barry White. Barry White's voice was like velvet thunder, deep, smooth, and instantly recognizable. Born in Galveston, Texas in 1944, he rose from poverty in Los Angeles to become one of the greatest soul singers of all time. With hits like Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, You're the First, the Last, My Everything and Never Never Gonna Give You Up. He sold over 100 million records worldwide, making him one of the best-selling artists in history. His romantic ballads became the soundtrack of love across generations. But while his stage presence radiated confidence behind the scenes, his health was collapsing. Years of struggling with high blood pressure and diabetes eventually led to chronic kidney failure. By the late 1990s, White's body began showing visible signs of strain, swollen legs, fatigue, and constant pain. Yet he never wanted fans to see weakness. He continued recording and performing, often pushing himself beyond safe limits just to deliver his signature sound. Do you think fans should remember artists for their resilience in hiding pain, or for the courage it takes to admit vulnerability? In 2003, as doctors prepared him for a kidney transplant, Barry suffered a massive stroke. It left him unable to speak, let alone sing, robbing him of the gift that had defined his life. Just weeks later, on July 4, 2003, Barry White died at 58 years old. His loss was felt worldwide, but his music continues to live on in weddings, love stories, and radio playlists everywhere. His deep baritone, filled with warmth and longing, remains timeless, a reminder that while his body gave way, his voice will never fade. Gerald Levert. Gerald Levert was born into music royalty as the son of Eddie Levert, lead singer of the O'Jays. But he didn't live in his father's shadow. He carved out his own legendary career. Born in 1966 in Philadelphia and raised in Ohio, Gerald became known for his powerful, passionate voice and heartfelt lyrics. With the group Levert, the supergroup LSG, and his solo career, he created classics like Casanova Baby, Hold On to Me, and In My Songs. Fans loved him not just for his music, but for the sincerity and warmth he poured into every note. Yet behind his strong voice was a body weighed down by years of hidden struggles. Chronic pain plagued Gerald in his later years, leading him to rely on prescription medications to cope. These included painkillers, sleeping pills, and anti-anxiety drugs. To the public, he still looked like the charming balladeer, smiling through interviews and giving flawless performances. Few knew that after shows he often collapsed backstage, clutching his chest and struggling to breathe. Do you think the pressures of constantly performing push entertainers to hide dangerous dependencies from the public? On November 10, 2006, at just 40 years old, Gerald Levert was found unresponsive in his Cleveland home. The autopsy revealed his death was caused by an accidental overdose of 6 different prescription drugs. His passing shocked the R&B community because only days earlier he had been working in the studio full of plans for new projects. Though his life ended too soon, Gerald's voice remains immortal, carried through the timeless songs that continue to touch hearts. His story is a reminder that even the strongest voices sometimes suffer in silence. Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway was often called a musical genius, a man whose voice could capture both joy and sorrow in a single note. Born in Chicago in 1945 and raised in St. Louis, he studied music at Howard University, before becoming one of the most respected soul artists of the 1970s. His songs like A Song for You This Christmas and his duets with Roberta Flack. Where Is the Love and the Closer I Get to You showcased his unmatched gift for melody and emotion. But while his artistry soared, his private world was collapsing under the weight of mental illness. By the early 1970s, Hathaway was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He suffered terrifying delusions, often believing that forces were out to poison or control him. Medication helped at times, but the side effects left him lethargic and dulled his creative spark. Still, he fought to continue recording, hoping his gift could outshine his pain. Those around him noticed his struggles, yet, in an industry obsessed with image, Hathaway kept most of his suffering hidden. Do you believe society has improved in supporting artists with mental health struggles? Or are we still failing them today? On January 13, 1979, after a studio session with Roberta Flack in New York City, Hathaway returned to his hotel suite at the Essex House. Later that evening, his body was found on the sidewalk, 15 stories below. The death was ruled a suicide, but questions still linger. He was just 33 years old. Though his life ended tragically, Donny Hathaway's music remains timeless, a reminder of how brilliance and torment can exist in the same soul. Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole was born into music royalty in 1950 as the daughter of Nat King Cole, but she forged her own remarkable path. With hits like This Will Be an Everlasting Love, Inseparable, and Pink Cadillac, she became a Grammy-winning superstar in the 1970s and 1980s. Later, her 1991 album, Unforgettable. With Love, where she performed alongside her late father through studio technology, sold over 7 million copies and won her Album of the Year. On stage, she radiated grace, glamour, and resilience. Yet beneath that elegance, Natalie lived with an illness that traced back to her earlier struggles. In her youth, she battled heroin and crack cocaine addiction. Though she overcame it in the 1980s, the consequences remained. In 2008, doctors diagnosed her with hepatitis C, a disease linked to past drug use. Soon, her liver and kidneys began failing, but she kept the news private. She even underwent kidney transplant surgery in 2009 without making headlines. Despite her fragile condition, she continued to record and perform, never allowing her audience to see how much pain she endured. Would you have guessed that a woman who seemed so radiant on stage was quietly fighting for her life behind closed doors? By 2014, her health had sharply declined and she became visibly frail. Still, she appeared at events masking her struggle with the same poise she had always shown. On December 31, 2015, Natalie Cole died in Los Angeles at 65 years old. Her passing marked the end of a life filled with triumph, struggle, and unforgettable music. Today, her legacy is not only her voice, but her courage to live with dignity despite the shadows of her past. Andre Waters. Andre Waters was known on the football field as a warrior. Born in Belle Glade, Florida in 1962, he rose from humble beginnings to earn a spot as a safety with the Philadelphia Eagles. Nicknamed Dirty Waters for his aggressive, bone-jarring hits, he played with a fearless style that struck fear into opponents and thrilled fans. But every collision, every tackle was slowly chiseling away at him. What no one saw beneath the helmet was that Waters was building up silent damage to his brain, hit after hit, year after year. After retiring in 1995, he began to experience disturbing symptoms, mood swings, depression, memory lapses, and sleepless nights. Still, in the culture of football where toughness was prized, he stayed silent. He never told the world how much he was suffering. Do you think the NFL has done enough to protect players from the long-term damage of repeated head injuries? On November 20th, 2006, at just 44 years old, Andre Waters died by suicide in his Tampa, Florida home. The autopsy later revealed he had chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, a degenerative brain disease caused by repeated concussions. His brain tissue resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. His death became a turning point in the national conversation about football safety, highlighting the heavy toll hidden beneath the glory of the game. Though gone, Andre Waters left behind a legacy that forced the world to face the darker truths of America's most popular sport. Harold Hunter. Harold Hunter was a legend of New York City's streets, a skateboarder who turned raw rebellion into art. Born in 1974 and raised in the East Village, he became known for his fearless tricks, wild personality, and charisma that drew people in wherever he went. Hunter's fame soared after starring in the 1995 cult film Kids, which gave him international recognition. But for Harold, skateboarding was more than a sport. It was an escape, a way to fly above the struggles of his reality. Behind the bravado, however, Hunter wrestled with the pressures of fame and a lifestyle that revolved around partying and excess. Years of stimulant abuse began to take their toll on his body, weakening the heart of a man who once seemed indestructible. Do you believe the culture of fame sometimes traps young stars into destructive cycles they cannot escape? On February 17, 2006, Harold was found unresponsive in his Manhattan apartment. The official cause of death was a heart attack brought on by years of drug use. He was only 31 years old. Friends and fans were devastated, remembering him not just as a skater, but as a cultural icon who embodied the grit and spirit of New York City. His untimely death served as a stark reminder that behind every carefree performance, there may be a private storm few ever see. Today, Harold Hunter's name still resonates in skateboarding communities worldwide, celebrated for both his fearless style and his raw authenticity. David Ruffin. David Ruffin's raspy, emotional voice helped define the Temptations during Motown's golden era. Born in Mississippi in 1941, he joined the group in 1964, and with songs like My Girl Ain't Too Proud to Beg and I Wish It Would Rain, he became the heart of their sound. His tall frame, glasses, and magnetic stage presence made him unforgettable. Yet behind the dazzling lights, Ruffin carried deep struggles with addiction, health, and loneliness that he rarely spoke about. After leaving the Temptations in 1968, Ruffin pursued a solo career, releasing hits such as My Whole World Ended. But fame faded, and by the 1980s, his life was clouded by drug use and health issues, especially chronic heart disease. To dull chest pains and cope with emotional lows, he leaned on drugs, creating a vicious cycle. His reputation suffered, yet fans continued to see only the soulful performer who gave everything to his music. Do you think artists like Ruffin were failed by an industry that profited from their talent, but offered little support in their darkest times? On June 1, 1991, David Ruffin was found unresponsive in a Philadelphia hospital. Official reports cited a cocaine overdose, but those close to him believed years of illness and heartbreak played an even bigger role. He was just 50 years old. Though his life ended tragically, his voice remains immortal. Each time My Girl plays, the world remembers not just the song, but the man who poured his soul into every note, even as his own heart was breaking. Wilson Pickett. Wilson Pickett was called the Wicked Pickett, and for good reason. His voice was raw fire. Born in 1941 in Alabama, he became one of soul music's greatest shouters, with classics like In the Midnight Hour, Mustang Sally, and Land of 1,000 Dances. His performances were electric, his voice a storm that demanded attention. On stage, Pickett seemed larger than life, unstoppable and untamed. But beneath that energy was a man silently fighting against the failing strength of his own heart. By the early 2000s, Pickett's health began deteriorating. Years of hard living and constant performing left him with arteriosclerosis, a dangerous hardening of the arteries. He experienced chest pains and dizzy spells, but he rarely let anyone know. To him, showing weakness meant losing the image of the fierce soul man audiences adored. Do you think legends like Pickett felt pressure to keep performing even when their bodies begged them to stop? On January 19, 2006, Wilson Pickett passed away in Virginia at the age of 64 from a heart attack caused by the disease. His death marked the end of an era in soul music, but his voice continues to roar through time. Pickett left behind not only timeless hits, but also the memory of a man who lived and sang with every ounce of his being. His story is a reminder that sometimes even the most powerful storms burn out in silence. Reggie White. Reggie White was called the Minister of Defense, a nickname that captured both his ferocity on the field and his devotion off it. Born in 1961 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, White became one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. Over a 15-year career with the Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers, and Carolina Panthers, he racked up 198 sacks, second most in NFL history at the time. A Super Bowl champion, a two-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, and a member of both the college and pro football halls of fame, White was revered as much for his faith as for his dominance. But hidden beneath the armor of a giant was a man quietly battling his own body. For years, White struggled with sleep apnea and heart disease. He rarely spoke about his health even to those close to him. He believed toughness meant pushing through, just as he had on the field against linemen twice his size. Friends later said he downplayed chest pains and shortness of breath, determined not to let illness dim his image as one of football's strongest men. Do you think athletes feel forced to hide health problems to maintain the image of invincibility fans expect? On December 26, 2004, White passed away suddenly in his sleep from cardiac arrhythmia at just 43 years old. His shocking death sent ripples through the sports world. The man who had crushed opponents with ease had been fighting a silent enemy he never revealed. Today, Reggie White is remembered not only as a gridiron legend, but also as a reminder that even the mightiest fall quietly. Bill Nunn. Bill Nunn's face was unforgettable, even if his name wasn't always known to casual viewers. Born in 1953 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Nunn built a career as a versatile character actor. To millions, he will forever be Radio Raheem in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, 1989, carrying his iconic love and hate rings while delivering one of cinema's most powerful monologues. He also gained recognition in films like New Jack City and as Robbie Robertson, the wise editor in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. On screen, Nunn projected strength and conviction. Off-screen, he lived a quiet, dignified life. Few ever knew that he was hiding a devastating illness. In 2015, Bill Nunn was diagnosed with leukemia. True to his private nature, he told almost no one. He continued showing up to work smiling and performing without hinting at the struggle inside. Friends and colleagues later recalled how he carried himself as if nothing had changed, even as fatigue and illness slowly overtook him. Do you believe actors should share their illnesses with fans, or is dignity and privacy just as inspiring? On September 24, 2016, Bill Nunn died at his home in Pittsburgh at 62. His death stunned fans who had no idea he had been sick. In silence, he had faced his hardest role, a man who chose grace over sympathy. His legacy endures not only in his unforgettable performances, but in the quiet strength with which he lived his final days. Nell Carter. Nell Carter was the kind of performer who lit up every room she entered. Born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1948, she began singing in church before breaking into theater. Her career soared when she won a Tony Award in 1978 for her electrifying performance in the Broadway musical Ain't Misbehavin'. That same role earned her an Emmy in 1982 when it was adapted for television. But most audiences remember her best as the witty, lovable housekeeper in the NBC sitcom Gimme a Break, which ran for 6 seasons. With her warm smile and effortless comedic timing, Carter seemed destined to bring joy. Yet behind the laughter, her life was weighed down by private pain. Carter lived for decades with diabetes, a disease that took a heavy toll on her health. She also suffered a brain aneurysm, a condition that could rupture at any moment. These illnesses were compounded by personal struggles, including financial troubles and the emotional scars of addiction recovery. Still, she rarely let the public see her vulnerability, putting on a brave face, even when she was exhausted. Do you think the entertainment industry overlooks how much pressure performers feel to hide their health issues in order to keep working? On January 23, 2003, Nell Carter collapsed in her Beverly Hills home and was pronounced dead at age 54. The official cause was heart disease complicated by diabetes. Her passing shocked fans who had only ever seen her radiant and strong. Today, she is remembered not just for her vibrant talent, but for her courage in facing battles that she never allowed to define her. Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt was a woman who refused to be tamed. Born in 1927 in South Carolina, she overcame a childhood of poverty and abuse to become one of the most captivating performers of the 20th century. Her sultry voice and feline grace made her a star on stage in music and in film. She purred her way through classics like C'est Si Bon and Santa Baby entranced audiences as Catwoman in the 1960s Batman series, and was later recognized with Tony Grammy and Emmy nominations. Kitt's bold personality, quick wit, and political outspokenness made her both admired and controversial. But beneath her fierce exterior, she carried a painful secret. In 2000, Eartha Kitt was diagnosed with colon cancer. She kept the news private, choosing to face chemotherapy and surgeries quietly without public pity. Even as the disease wore her down, she continued to appear in films, perform concerts, and charm interviewers with her sharp humor and elegance. Do you believe it takes greater strength to share a struggle publicly or to battle it privately as Eartha did? For nearly a decade, she fought the illness in silence. On December 25, 2008, Eartha Kitt died at her Connecticut home at age 81, surrounded by family. Her passing on Christmas Day felt almost poetic. The world lost one of its brightest, most dazzling lights in the midst of celebration. Kitt left behind not just iconic performances, but a legacy of resilience, independence, and unapologetic authenticity. Gregory Hines. Gregory Hines was the man whose feet could sing. Born in New York City in 1946, he began dancing as a child alongside his brother Maurice under the guidance of their father in the Hines Kids Act. By his teens, he was already dazzling audiences with his rhythm and charisma. Hines went on to become one of the world's most celebrated tap dancers, revitalizing the art form in the 1980s and 1990s. His performances were not just about precision, they told stories full of fire and joy. Beyond the stage, he thrived as an actor and singer, starring in films like White Nights, Running Scared, and Tap, while also earning a Tony Award in 1992 for his role in Jelly's Last Jam. To fans, he seemed unstoppable, always smiling, always moving. Yet behind his charm and grace, Gregory carried a secret battle. In 2002, Hines was diagnosed with liver cancer. True to his private nature, he chose to keep the diagnosis hidden from the public. He continued to perform, appear on television, and greet admirers with the same warmth that defined him, never revealing the pain that was silently consuming his body. Do you think Gregory's decision to protect his fans from his illness was an act of love, or did it deny them the chance to say a proper goodbye? By the summer of 2003, the illness advanced rapidly. On August 9, 2003, Gregory Hines died in Los Angeles at just 57 years old. His death shocked fans who had no idea he was sick, and tributes poured in from across the entertainment world. Though his time was cut short, his legacy endures through every student of tap who draws inspiration from his artistry. Gregory Hines proved that even when the music stops, the rhythm of a legend never fades. These 21 legends gave us music, laughter, films, and unforgettable moments, yet chose to carry their pain in silence. Some say that was ultimate strength, refusing pity and protecting their legacy. Others argue it revealed a heartbreaking loneliness that no one should suffer alone. So what do you think? Should we honor their privacy as an act of courage, or wish they had spoken out to raise awareness and perhaps change lives? Share your thoughts below, because their stories deserve more than silence. This is Legends of Black Excellence.